This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
PlayStation Wrestling Network, Making Mount Rushmore, is back for our 4th edition here in the hot month of July. And we got a hot show for you tonight. Tonight we're talking about the Mount Rushmores of setup moves and finishers. And I have 3 great guys who are going to break it down. I'm actually going to be a panelist as well, in addition to moderator. Sometimes when I have 3 or less than 4 people, I like to throw a list in on something I know about. I hope I know about. I mean, that's why I host. Those who can do, those who can't host, right? Let's get them in here. We got a couple of debuts and our returner. First off, one of our debuts, you've heard him on PTB and Trivia Night. He's also been on the Place to Be podcast, I believe. John Kasalika. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andy. Great to be here. I'm glad that I'm not involved in a competition where I can, fall on my face yet again. So this will be a nice welcome, a little friendlier discussion, hopefully.
Yes, well, you were great coming back. If we do a season 2 for Trivia Night, we hope you're more than welcome to be on again.
I'm ready. I'm boning up. I'm geared up to go. So yes. Let's do it.
You have plenty of months to study. Okay. Our returner tonight is Ben Locke. Ben, welcome back.
Good evening, Andy. You're making me sound like the grizzly veteran that I am. Let's do this.
Yes. Grizzled! Young veteran, hell yeah. And our other debut, this guy is a guy that I have been hoping to get on a show. I briefly, for a short time, I co-hosted the pod, and then he went and started a podcast network with a couple of fine gentlemen. He is one of the purveyors of the North-South Connection. You can hear him on many shows on that very feed, including the Wrestling Warzone, which he does with JT Rosero. That is Chad Campbell. Chad, welcome to Making Mount Rushmore, finally.
Thank you, Andy. Happy to be here. Excited to share my list and hear everybody else's for this topic.
All right. Thank you very much. So those of you who listened, yes, this is our 4th outing. We're I think we're almost up to episode 20 on the pop version. It's very simple. Everybody gives their list of 4. We go around the room and everybody gives their thoughts and their picks. And everybody gets a chance to go first, second, last each time. We rotate. Everybody gets a chance. So we're going to do setup moves to start. That is those wrestling moves that, that when those are hit, that the finisher's coming and the crowd just starts to pop and wake up if it's been like a long match, even if it's a sprint. You see that move and it's like, oh, wow, here we go. All right, so, John, we're going to start with you. What is your first setup move on your Mount Rushmore list?
Thanks, Andy. When you sent out this topic for me, there was actually one move that came to mind immediately for me, and I think we all think of it when we think about a setup move. And I'm talking about Jake the Snake Roberts' short arm clothesline right before he sets up the DDT. He rings that arm, pulls you in for the clothesline, then he kind of takes a moment. You see him, he seems almost out of breath, which I always thought was odd because he seems almost exhausted from that, and gives that kind of hunched over, but then signals in the air with the finger waving to signal the DDT. And like you said, the end is really near.
Yeah, the guy knew ring psychology probably better than anybody else. That he knew how to sell it and really just have the palm in the crowd in the palm of his hand. It was on Ben's list as well. Ben, what are your thoughts on Jake's short arm clothesline?
Yeah, like John said, it was number 1 when I was coming up with my list as well. Purely because it's a unique move. Nobody else in the WWF is doing that move at that stage. And like you say, the end is near that point. The crowd wake up, they know what's going to come next, and it's just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Chad had it on his list as well.
Yeah, I think the setup list was tougher for me to generate just because I sometimes think about different guys that have different finishers and some moves that aren't strictly setups, but I can never recall Jake the Snake winning a match off of the short arm clothesline. And I think the way he was able to seamlessly go from that to doing the hand signal that John talked about and then executing the DDT, it was just a 3 kind of move set that he did between the clothesline, the signal, and the DDT that made him really stick out and was unique. And I don't really know of anybody around that time frame either that was utilizing the short arm clothesline. And even since then, it's not a move you see very often, especially in the way that he performed it. So it's really lasted, I think, through the annals of wrestling history as well as being a great setup move.
Yeah, I had it as well because, like John said, when you think of setup moves, this is the first one that comes to mind. Jake didn't have the best body. He wasn't the quickest. He wasn't the strongest. But what he did, he made up for in those intangibles. Just the way he did his moves, the way he hit his moves. Sometimes he would even take a breath, put his hand on his hips, and like let a big breath out, and be like, "All right," and then the hand would go up. It was masterful, and I think, I've never really seen anybody else execute it, but also I think it could be one of those moves that guys coming up like see that and they're like, whoa, that's like, if I try that, they're going to compare me to Jake, and if I don't have it just right, I'm going to get destroyed, in the comments or whatever. So I think it may maybe scare some guys off from trying it, but I would love to see if somebody, Jake is a great mentor. I mean, the guy has such a mind. If he could get like a young guy to do it, I mean, not really steal his moveset, like make it a setup for a different move, not the DDT, but I think it would be welcome to see somebody else do it, as long as they do it right. All right, so Ben, it's your turn. Let's give us another edition of your setup moves.
Okay, we're going to a guy who somehow is still, well, I say still wrestling today. One match in however many years, I suppose it does count. But it's a guy with a setup move, that I think is pretty excellent. And it is. I'm talking about Sting, and I'm talking about the Stinger Splash. We talk about getting the crowd on their feet, getting the crowd excited. He lets out the howl before the splash hits it, and then either goes straight up to the top rope for the splash, or more often than not hits the Scorpion Deathlock. And it's just one of those great moves, one of the great baby faces of our time, Sting.
Yep. Chad, it didn't make your list, but do you have any thoughts on the Stinger Splash as a setup move?
One thing I like about the Stinger Splash is that it was utilized in different areas. I think throughout the match, like sometimes Sting would use it in the beginning of the match to kind of give him the babyface shine, and then it would be where he could call back to it. I also like the instances where he missed the Stinger Splash. I think he generally did a great job of selling the damage if he missed the Stinger Splash. I think the most memorable version of that is versus Vader at Great American Bash 92, where he wipes out completely on the Stinger Splash, and then Vader's able to hit the power bomb to win the championship. So it's definitely a great move that fits Sting's overall personality.
Mm-hmm. John, you have any thoughts on the Stinger Splash to add?
Stinger Splash is a great setup. I 100% endorse it. I think about recently seeing those biography specials that we've seen, and it really calls into light how massive Sting was. You forget, like, you see him next to Warrior, and it's one of those first moves I remember seeing that showed just the agility and speed being pulled off by such a big guy, and that's what I think really sticks out for me. It made him such a different performer.
Yeah, I love the contrast, because you have this flying move basically where he does a leap onto the guy in the corner, and then he leads into a submission move. So it's kind of like you get he speeds you up, he hits you, boom, and then, all right, let's drive that nail in, basically just really turn the screw and get you to submit. So yeah, I always loved it when I'm growing up watching it. Chad, why don't you give us another one of your picks?
So I went with one that's certainly not a fantastic or unique wrestling move by any stretch of the imagination, but I selected Hulk Hogan's Big Boot. I think it's extremely iconic. Again, I think of the Big Boot as kind of the bridge in his whole sequence, from the Hulk up to the punches to the Big Boot, and then of course the leg drop to secure it. But I thought the big boot was usually utilized well. It was something where, again, once he hit it, the match was almost always over. You didn't see it blocked very much. And for a guy Hulk's size, I do think it was a move he executed well, where he was able to get his leg up and, usually make generally good contact with the guys on the big boot. So, again, not the most flashy move per se, but I do think it's an iconic setup move, the big boot.
Yeah, I agree with that. John, do you have any thoughts on Hogan's big boot?
My favorite big boots that he hit were the ones where he got to a point where he could move so seamlessly into running towards the ropes. So he would hit it and then almost in one motion be heading toward the ropes, and the leg would be coming down almost as the guy was just hitting the mat. And it made it really feel like one whole move, that big boot leg drop. Later on, he kind of would hit the boot and then wait around and slowly go over and get to the leg. But when he was hitting it in his prime, yeah, the big boot was a real. You knew, just like with that short arm clothesline, the end was short to come.
Yeah. Ben, you had as well.
Yeah, like the boy said.
Honorable mention. Sorry.
Yeah. I think, like the boy said, it's iconic, and you can just play that image in your head of just Hogan against whoever, just hits the boot, 5 seconds later hits the leg drop, 3 seconds later wins the match. It has to either be on the Rushmore, at the very least needs to get mentioned in dispatches.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Except for when it was the Warrior, and everybody couldn't. But yeah, no, it was. You knew when the big boot was hit, the leg drop was coming, match was over. So classic set move. So I'm going to give one of my entries. I'm going with Finn Balor's 1916. His kick that he does, where he basically launches the guy halfway across the ring into the corner, and it's a perfect setup for the coup de grace. He hits it with such force, and it's actually three moves. Usually he hits the what's it called again? The now I'm blanking on it, where he gets the Seth Rollins does it as well. It's the Sling Blade. Yeah, Sling Blade 1916 coup de grace. It's a great 3-move set, but I love the force that he hits it with, because the guy just goes smashing into it. Usually they go down pretty much exact in position for the coup de grace. John, any thoughts on the 1916?
Great power move, like you said. I think what really makes it stick out again is that force, like you mentioned, and the guy landing in the perfect spot for the coup de grace. I think that's one of the great things about these setup moves, is that if they end up leaving the guy in a space for the finisher, or that they kind of ripen up a body part for the finisher even more.
Mm-hmm. Ben?
Like you say, the force he hits through with, and then it's the speed as well. So, the speed he goes up to the top rope to hit the coup de grace, the timing is perfect.
Yeah, and he got, after he turned heel, it looks nastier even too.
Yeah, definitely.
Chad, what do you think of the 1916?
Sorry, it was on mute. Yeah,
I was like, oh, is it that bad a pick? Oh my god!
No, it's one I didn't think of, but I mean, it definitely works as far as it being a true setup move that also kind of holds up on its own as well. So I think that's really, when you think of great setup moves in wrestling, it certainly serves a purpose for sure.
All right, very good. All right, John, give us another selection on your list.
All right, I'm going to stay in the 80s, but with a bit of a more athletic move rather than Jake's short arm clothesline that he's huffing and puffing after. And I'm going to go with a move that sets up for the finisher really nicely, and that's Mr. Perfect's little neck snap flip that he would do during his matches. If you remember these, his opponent would typically land sitting up, and Perfect would be behind him and just run towards him, do a somersault in the air, grabbing the back of his head, snapping his neck forward, and leaving him prone. Just an athletic move for the time. You didn't see things like this, and really kind of built into that image of Mr. Perfect being what he said, this perfect athlete. I thought it really, really stood out. Between that and his standing drop kick that he would do, just jumping from a standing position, I think he had some great setup moves.
Mm-hmm. Ben, any thoughts on Perfect's next snap?
It's Mr. Perfect showing off, but that's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah. All right. Chad?
Yeah, I think the thing that I like about this is it's a showy move. but it's also one that he was able to use in his repertoire when he was a babyface in the AWA before he turned heel after winning the title. So it is a move that looks like real flashy on the surface, but did really kind of integrate seamlessly whether he was a heel or face.
Yeah, it was so damn smooth. That's all there's to it. He just would hit that, and it looked like it hurt, even though it probably was, just a lot of flipping around. But yeah, it looked perfect, basically, for lack of a better term. Ben, back to you for another pick.
Yeah, so my next pick, I'm pretty sure this was a finisher for this guy at one time, but when I started watching WCW in about 92, 93, it was very much settled me for something else. I'm talking about Arn Anderson's Spinebuster. The Spinebuster is a great move anyway, but Anderson's version where he picks the guy up and then drives him down, flips around and drives him down, I think is the best. That moment at WrestleMania 18 when he hits it on Undertaker is one of my favorite moments of all time. And yeah, just tremendous.
Now, a couple of us had it as honorable mentions in the next half of the show, but Chad, what are your thoughts on Arn's Spinebuster?
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome move. I would say for the topic we're doing tonight, it is one of the things where I didn't know what list to put it on, so it got left off as a result. But I think Arn was able to get some great bounce off of the move, which makes the impact great. You'll see like the wrestler taking the bump usually does really well and bouncing off the mat and taking it, but the way Arn would drive his knees down, like he would get some height, just from the impact of the move, and that created some more emphasis to show that it was that much more devastating.
John, what are your thoughts on Arn's?
Yeah, when it comes to Spinebusters, they don't get much better than Arn's. I mean, and you've seen Spinebusters done a lot differently. Some guys will pick him up and kind of turn him. Farouk would always or Ron Simmons even would just pick him up and kind of toss him straight down, which looked great. But Arn's, I think, as Ben and everybody Chad just pointed out, that extra force of just it felt like he was driving him through the mat. And for a guy who's just looks like he has kind of, I don't know, bar strength or whatever, Arn's not the big muscle guy, but you could tell like that. Oh yeah, he would probably use that in a fight on me anyway. Like if I was running at him.
Yeah. I mean, Batista's was great. I think the closest maybe Triple H maybe to. I mean, the way Arn did it, it was like three he picked the guy up, he would do the turn, and then he would basically slam the guy down. It was so, but it looked like three different separate moves, but it all flowed together. Like there was just such precision to it. I mean, we've just talked about Mr. Perfect, but I mean, Arn's Spinebuster is probably, in my opinion, one of the quote unquote prettiest moves I think I've ever seen in wrestling. It's just the way he hits that. It's just everything Arn did though was just with such precision. I mean, and the way he would kick a guy, where he would just set a guy up for a DD. But his Spinebuster is really is nobody does it better, I think. Chad, why don't you give us another one on your list as well?
So a couple of the people on the panel talked about how the short arm clothesline was the first thing they thought about. That was the second one for me. The very first one that I actually thought about in the setup move, and then kind of a spoiler for our next list, so you'll hear more later. But just as far as the setup move is Goldberg's spear. Mm-hmm. I am pretty critical of spears in wrestling. I think that like Roman Reigns does a very good spear. I think as I guess a known Edge hater, I think he does in general a pretty terrible spear most of the time. But I thought Goldberg's was great, and again it was that perfect kind of setup for the jackhammer, and it was also a move that could stand up on its own, where once he hit that, and sometimes he hit it kind of out of nowhere, and then the match was pretty much over.
Yeah, I agree. John, what are your thoughts on Goldberg's?
Yeah, The spear is a great setup, and I probably should have had that on my honorable mentions. I'm kicking myself a bit for not having it. I think I was going along the lines of thinking so many people do it, but really Goldberg's the one who uses it as a setup in the perfect way. You think about Edge tries to use it as a finisher, and Roman even was for a while, but Goldberg, it was part of his moveset, and it was when I think about that Hogan match when he wins the title and he hits the spear, and Bobby and Tony are saying, that's it. Now he's got him set up. They know it's over because he's set him up perfectly for the jackhammer, and the crowd is up waiting for it just because he sets that tone when the spear is hit. And he looked like he ran through some of the spears he hit were awesome. That's what you get for having a reckless green guy who's huge being able to do that move. But great setup move.
Mm-hmm. Ben, any thoughts on the spear? Well, Goldberg's spear?
The best version of a spear out there, like the boys have said, because he's a genuinely big guy, genuinely powerful guy. He absolutely spikes the person, whoever it is doing it. My personal favorite is the one he gives The Rock on his Raw debut.
Yes.
But yeah, just a great move.
Yeah, it's similar to, how we talked about Hogan, how all these guys, these setup moves, he would hit the move, the place would explode. He would kind of like get up and do that with the arms, and he would do the stomp and let's just, crick his neck around and get the tongue out and all that stuff. It was just all part of that. He knew it was over. He's like, I hit this, you're done, basically. I just got to put you to bed. So that was the beauty of it. So I'm going to give another one on my list. Now, this is more, I wouldn't say it's a wrestling. I say it's more of a sports entertainment setup move. But I'm going to go with the People's Elbow because, yes, it also actually The Rock had a spine buster that would lead up to it. But when he hit the People's Elbow, yeah, it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek that it was the greatest move in sports entertainment. And he would just play to the crowd. The elbow pad would go out. He would do the whole little shimmy dance thing, and then really, really overdo it with the elbow drop. I mean, it's just one of the most fun moves in the history of wrestling. I mean, he would hit that, and then he would immediately, get up and get ready to hit the rock bottom. So, I said the People's Elbow. John, any thoughts on that?
It's synonymous with The Rock, and when you think of The Rock, you think of the People's Elbow. What would be your favorite People's Elbow that you remember?
Oh God, I have the worst memory. I'm lucky I came up with a list, but God, what was that? Jesus, the one he did with Mick was really great. The double team one.
Yeah,
when they did that one.
I love the one that he does in his dress shoes. He nearly falls over, but he still hits it and looks smooth. You can tell he's just sliding in those loafers. I think it's on Austin, like in a post, in like the post Survivor Series beatdown or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Ben, thoughts on the People's Elbow? You on mute, Ben? Oh, we lost Ben. Yeah, hang up by accident. Chad, any thoughts on the People's Elbow?
I do like the People's Elbow. I think if you generalize it as a setup move, more than a finisher of itself, I think it works well as a setup move because it's entertaining. It's not necessarily the most brutalizing move, yes. But certainly fit Rock's style and character overall. So. Yeah,
it's really the entertainment side. It's not a wrestling, not the biggest wrestling move. While we try to get Ben back, we're back to John. Let's give us another one on your list.
Sure. Next one I took is similar to People's Elbow. I know it was used as a finisher sometimes, but I always remember it as that setup in the middle of a match. Whether it would be Fonzie holding up the chair for him to kick it, or some opponent dumbly catching the chair and then Rob Van Dam kicking it right in his face, and that's the Van Daminator. Just an innovative move, something you could only get away with in ECW at that time. Looked cool. Just who wouldn't want to just spin kick a chair into somebody's face? And played into his acrobatics, but also the extreme nature of ECW, and set us up for, what we'll probably hear in some people talk about in our second half, but his ultimate finisher.
Chad, any thoughts on
Yeah,
the
yeah. I think what John said about like how the Van Daminator was such a kind of moment in time ECW move. That's really to me its biggest strength. Like you can be kind of contrarian and look at some logic gaps because there were some pretty egregious like wrestlers catching it and then getting smacked with the chairs or whatnot. But for that crowd, it was a great blend of violence as well as athleticism that really helped propel Rob Van Dam as a wrestler overall.
All right. Ben, any thoughts on the Van Daminator?
Hi, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. Van Daminator's Van Daminator's a great move. Yeah, British internet. That's it, Chad. That's it. You need to get involved with it. British internet is a terrible, terrible thing. Van Daminator, though, is not a terrible thing. That's a great move.
Yes, God bless the no DQ and ECW for him to be able to do that move as much as he could.
And again, it was just a tremendous setup. Again, speed and force for the frog splash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Ben, actually, we're up to you. Finish up your list.
Okay. This one I don't think it's a great finisher, so I don't want people to think that. But I think in terms of a crowd response and the pop it gets, I think it has to be included. And it's the 619 by Rey Mysterio. It's amazing how many matches Rey can have where his opponent suddenly seems to be sprawled on the ropes. That's strange how that always happens. But went back in the days before his knees got shot, it was a great setup for the West Coast pop. Nowadays it's more of a setup for a big splash off the top rope. But it's a great move, and like I say, the crowd love it, and you can't deny its popularity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Chad, what are your thoughts on the 619?
I think the 619 was a really great innovation that Rey added into his moveset when he went to WWE and was interacting more with kind of the main eventers, the bigger guys, than what you saw kind of very briefly in his WCW run, where he's mainly with the cruisers and utilized the Rana. I think it'd be pretty tough for Brock and some of the others to conceivably take that move. But the 619 was something he was able to use no matter how big his opponent was. So it worked well in that regard.
Yeah. John?
Exactly. Just to echo on what Chad's saying about the innovation with it, I think it was impressive that he took a piece of his own moveset from before and kind of adjusted it to make the 619. If you remember from his earlier lucha matches in WCW or in Mexico, he did that same move in the running and spinning through the ropes, only it was on to kind of reverse out of a dive, as if he was going to dive out of the ring, but then he would just spin back into the ring instead. So it was I'm bailing out of a move. And now he's using it as an offensive move instead and to kick people. I think in WCW Revenge you could do it with just the spin out of the move. But great innovation, really fun to see. The crowd loves it. You can't, you get a lot of energy just from the move from watching it. So yeah, and you can line up 3 or 4 people to do it with. We've seen. So you tried to innovate with it that way as well.
Yeah, it really serves the wrestler well. I had it as an honorable mention because I kind of put up there like with the People's Elbow, where it's more about the the flash and getting the crowd and the way it looks. It's just such a pretty move, the way he's able to come and swing around it. I mean, it does kind of the way he hits the guy, it does set up for the the splash or the Rana that he does afterwards. So it does serve a purpose. So I like it. Chad, why don't you finish up your list proper?
Yeah, so I mean, me being on the panel, I figured I'd pick a little bit of a more obscure choice. So I ended up going with Samoa Joe and the Muscle Buster. And I'm mainly thinking about his Ring of Honor World Title reign, where every once in a while he would use the Muscle Buster to pin kind of a lower level opponent. But more times than not, it was a setup either for his choke or for the island driver. And I just thought it was a great move that, again, was unique, wasn't done a lot at the time. And he made it look brutal. He kind of drove people right on their necks, so it looked really brutal. But also, again, it worked for what the subsequent move was, whether it was the Island Driver or the choke. So kind of when I think about Samoa Joe's long, lengthy reign and his dominance and the finishing stretches of those matches to set up to that final crescendo, most of the matches involved a muscle buster.
All right. Ben, any thoughts on the muscle buster?
Not that obscure, Chad, because I had it as an honorable mention. Yeah, it's just great. And like Chad says, it's unique to Joe at that point. So, it fit in with his character. There's just a viciousness that he has when he does it. Obviously, I think more of his TNA run, but and he's just destroying the X division with it. But it's tremendous, and like I say, it's unique and it's vicious and it's perfect for him.
John?
Yeah, I'm not as well versed in TNA or Ring of Honor, and I actually always kind of thought of Muscle Busters being a finish for Joe, but it was always impressive to me when I would see it. And I've seen other wrestlers try to incorporate it, and it just never looks the same. There was something about the way he would have his opponent up on his shoulders and just, looked like he folded him in half, basically. And terrific move, a lot of power from a guy, just intimidating, and made you realize you're in for some pain.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was very great move. Yeah, nobody else could execute it the way Joe did. It looked like it hurt. He's like Joe's one of those guys that probably is great in terms of I don't know, safe worker. I don't know the backstage stories, but like up there like Ron Simmons, like everything Ron Simmons did looked like it hurt. Batista, like everything they do looks like it hurt, and Joe was it was, and it's such just a devastating looking move, just the way you land, and he has you all crumple. You're already crumpled before he even drops you. So, all right. So I'm going to finish off my list proper. I don't know if anybody else would think of this one. I'm going with Earthquake's Power Slam. I thought it was very unique because he literally would hold the guy and do a couple of steps and then just drive him down with such force to the point where he was flat on his back in the middle of the ring, and that was set up for his sit-down splash. I mean, in WrestleFest, again, him and Jake were my tag team, and it was executed so well, and it served as a sit-up maneuver in that game as well. But yeah, the way he would just carry a guy around and a huge guy just kind of jump in the air and just slam the guy. It was just great. Good old John Tenta. John, any thoughts on Earthquake's Power Slam?
I'm glad you brought up WrestleFest, because I was about to say it looks phenomenal in WrestleFest, and his sprite and his animations on all his moves are outstanding, and one of the reasons to just revisit that game. A great moveset all around for Earthquake, from the headbutts to just the Earthquake splash, obviously, but that simple power slam, he did it differently from everybody else, and he's a big guy. It's definitely gonna hurt you. There's no faking that when he's taking you all the way down. Yeah.
Ben, any thoughts?
Left field pick, Andy, but I love it. Yeah, he just hit it from like a different angle, like you say, because he held the guy sideways and then drove him down. And yeah, kudos for the WrestleFest mention as well. That's tremendous.
Chad, any thoughts on Earthquake's?
It's a cool move. I kind of liked the little walk he generally did. It looked even a little nonchalant, but played into the kind of the whole fee-fi-fo-fum giant motif. So it worked certainly as a setup.
All right, John, finish off your list, and then we'll get to honorable mentions.
Great. So my last one comes from Bret Hart. I know we all kind of joke about him having a set of 5 moves, so we could take any of them to be his setup moves here. But I'm taking one that he incorporated later in his career, closer to when he was healing it up again, and that's when he started doing the ring post figure 4. Just something I'd never seen before. I'm sure it didn't actually really hurt, like when you look at it, because the other guy's holding his foot up or whatnot. But it just looked cool, and it seems like, oh wow, he's doing the figure four, but he's utilizing the ring post too. It made you feel like it was extra vicious, and he's not going to get a win with it, obviously, because you're in the ropes. But when he was able to use it, like in the Austin match, it's no DQ, and he's able to hold on to it, you're really feeling that this is a bad guy, and Austin's definitely feeling the pain from this right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, Ben, what are your thoughts on that one?
Fantastic move. Thank you, John, for that. Yeah, just great. Love Brett's 97 run, and I just can't say enough good things about it. And the ring post figure four is one of the major reasons for that.
Mm-hmm. Chad?
Yeah, I think I think of this as, I guess, more of like a specialized move that he certainly didn't throw out there in most of his matches, but when you did, more times than not, he made it count. So you were seeing something that was at least a very good match. So he picked his spots wisely when utilizing the ring post figure four.
All right, very good. All right, yeah, and I thought it was great too. It kind of like cements, the heelness there, especially just the whole with Austin and not letting go, and him it's just being so devastating. And he only really used, I don't know did he use it as a face at all? I can't remember.
I mean, technically he did, because he used it against Austin in the 13 match.
Yeah.
And he's a face during the match. So.
Yeah, and then everything changes. All right. John, why don't you give us your honorable mentions?
All right. So honorable mentions. For some reason I specified color here, but I said green or red mist. And I guess maybe they have different powers, but I love when my wrestlers like Tajiri, or lately we've seen even Asuka use it, or Muta. They would use the mist to stun an opponent and then be able to hit a finisher from that. Really kind of out of nowhere and very specific, but always just devious and really, really sinister for a person to pull out. Back to RVD, I always liked his split-legged moonsault, which he in ECW would use more as a transition and as a setup. It was building up to that 5-star frog splash. I like devastating kicks, and so Roman Reigns started using that drive-by kick, and I always thought that looked good, especially when they would shoot it from the angle where it would look like he's almost coming into your living room or kicking the guy into your living room. And then the last one I had down here was I love double team moves from tag teams. So in their short-lived run, Club Kamikaze, or their quick heel run as Kaientai, Men's Teo and Dick Togo used to do the kind of camel clutch into a baseball slide to the face, which would set up Taka coming in with the Michinoku driver. So always a great setup move, especially when you can enjoy some double teaming.
All right. Ben, what are your honorable mentions we haven't talked about?
There's only one we haven't talked about yet. So speaking of devastating kicks, I've gone with Daniel Bryan's yes kicks. It's like 619. It's a purely crowd popping spot, but when he hits them all as a face, it leads directly into the running knee, and it's just a tremendous move, because the crowd can just chant along with it, and they look like they hurt like hell, and that's the it's simple, it's a great little move, and like I say, it genuinely does lead to the finisher.
Mm-hmm. All right, Chad.
I had two that I want to mention. One is Ultimate Warrior's Gorilla Flesh Slam. Again, I feel like it leads right into his kind of big splash, so it's a perfect setup move. Also looked very powerful when he executed it. And then I also wanted to specify a tag team that used that. So I did Matt Hardy when he hit the twist of fate that led to the Swanton from Jeff Hardy. I think that, again, kind of led into what Andy was talking about with Finn Balor, where, one move put the wrestler in position for the second move, so it really worked seamlessly.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. And I had another power slam. Actually, I had Randy Orton's. The way he would just hit that snap, and then he would, drive his fist down right afterwards to get the RKO set up. And then I'm not sure. I think Kane used the tombstone as his finisher, so I had his choke slam here, because I think just the way he would just hit the guy, I mean, I even think he did it better than Taker, and better than Big Show or Kevin Nash as well. I think his just the way he just would open that big ass hand of his, grab the neck, and he had those people up so high. So that was my honorable mentions. So we've set you all up, and now when we come back, we're going to finish you off with John Kisalica, Ben Luck, and Chad Campbell. I am Andy Atherton, making Mount Rushmore Wrestling, episode number 4. We're all about the setups and the finishers. We'll be right back.
Coming now. Come on. Yeah. That's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, but you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel. A bit unstable.
All right, PlayStation Wrestling Network, making Mount Rushmore number 4 is back. We hit you with our setup moves. Now it's time to finish you off with John Kisalica, Ben Locke, and Chad Campbell. I am Andy Atherton. And starting us off will be Chad. Give us your first finishing maneuver on your Mount Rushmore.
So I kind of spoiled it in the first segment, so I might as well finish it here. I went with the jackhammer by Goldberg again. I think it's a great 1-2 punch. I think it's a move that we haven't seen be executed by anyone as well as Goldberg did it. And I thought it was just an impressive move because, you know, I think commentary helped it sometimes where it was like, oh, is he able to get him up? And he was able to get everybody up. So that kind of got a gasp from the crowd. And then once he flipped him over and delivered the move, you got that great, like, ooh, from the crowd to really give an extra oomph. And, you know, that was it. I mean, once the jackhammer was hit, it was, I can't recall. It has pretty much a 99.999% success rate. So the jackhammer for me is kind of when I think about the finishing moves and being a kid and watching him win the world title at the Georgia Dome. It was just a great triumphant moment, and it really personified Goldberg as a wrestler.
Oh yeah, and he depending on the size of the opponent, it was a little different. You know, obviously for the smaller guys, he could hold them up longer and kind of sell it a little more, like, you know, pump his arm or hold them up. You know, obviously when he was, like, you know, hitting them on the giant or something like that, he had to get him up and get him over because there's no way he was going to hold him up that long. But I mean, yeah, like when he had Hogan up there, it was just that the Georgia Dome, like the roof was off that. I remember watching that on Nitro, and just it was just exploding. I mean, the fact that Hogan, you know, did the job and Goldberg, you know, just hit it. Yeah. Not even Hogan's kicked out of the jackhammer. Ben, any thoughts on the jackhammer?
When you think of the jackhammer, that's the first image that comes into your head is that night in the Georgia Dome. You know, and Chad mentioned it. Commentary helps a whole lot as well. You know, Bobby fanboying at Goldberg every time he hit it was tremendous. And you know, again, that Hogan match, you just think of Tony shouting, "He's got him up," and it's just again just the speed and the force he hits it with. You know, I mean, I hadn't seen it before, but you know, when he hits it on the giant, for God's sake, you know, it's just the guy's a freak in the best way, and it's just a great move.
Mm-hmm. John, any thoughts on the jackhammer? Yeah,
when I think of the jackhammer, I think how it was one of those rare moves that I'd never seen before when you first saw it. And that was eye-popping right away. As everybody's touched on, just his power, his strength, seeing this big guy able to get a person up and then slam him down. It was also in that era in the late 90s where we kind of saw these finishing moves that were combining two moves. Here you had a suplex plus a power slam. But I also loved just the ferocity he hit it with, and then the way he would move immediately into that leg hook and have him covered for the pin. It was, it just drove his opponent into the mat, and you knew this is a force here that we're dealing with in Goldberg.
Yeah, it was just awesome. All right, Ben, give us your first selection.
Yeah, okay. So we mentioned in the first half the short arm clothesline by Jake Roberts. You've got to go with the DDT straight after. When Andy said, we were going to do a finishers list, that was my first move I thought of was the DDT. Jake's is the original. Jake's is the best. It was the end. And, it's turned into a setup transition move nowadays, but by God, Jake's was tremendous. The guy sold it like death when it hit, and that's exactly what the move was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Chad, you had as an honorable mention.
Yeah, honorable mention for me. I think it's an iconic move. Actually, in WWF, I don't think he hit it as much as I'd have liked as a finisher. A lot of times, but that's more grievance with the booking of Jake at points in WWF as far as the effectiveness as a move overall. But yeah, I think it's a move that certainly a lot of people have used since Jake. But when you think of DDT, I think the first person you think of is Jake. So it's a great finisher.
Yeah, I had it as an honorable mention as well. Yeah, Jake was the only person I had seen do the DDT until I started watching WCW, and then I saw Arn do it, and Arn's was good. Trust me, like I said earlier, everything Arn did was great, but Jake, just the way he would just hit it, yeah, it just and just the snap and the drop, and again, it was another move. It didn't matter the size of the wrestler. I mean, it's a DDT. Just get a guy in basically a front headlock and drop down. I mean, it's really nothing to do it, but he did it with such effect. John, any thoughts on Jake's DDT?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head at the end there, Andy. It really was a great equalizer. He doesn't have to lift you up, so he doesn't have to be jacked to be able to do that. He can just drop you on your head, and it's going to hurt. It's another one of those moves where in real life it's going to hurt. And yeah, I'm sure many of us, myself included, found out by, dropping your brother on his head, when pretending to wrestle and say, oh, okay, that one's actually pretty effective. Or you'd see, Ricky Steamboat hit the concrete and be dead weight while he's trying to lift him back in. Like that about my finishers. If it seems like they would definitely hurt. In Jake's the original, it really is a shame that it's been watered down. The way it's used as just simple transitions and guys get up or don't even try to cover after DDTs in these days. But I think they could definitely bring it back to settle as somebody's finisher. Mm-hmm. And it's that iconic.
Yeah. All right, John, we'll stick with you. Give us one of your entries.
Sure. So when I thought about finishers, I wanted to think about moves that haven't been adopted by tons of people. They're very unique to the wrestlers at hand, and also that very rarely, if ever, got kicked out of. And with that said, I'm going to start with one of the most iconic and actually the most decorated tag team we have, and I'm going to go with the Dudley Death Drop 3D. When they hit it, it ended a match. It was a versatile move that they would do, in the ring. They would just off the ropes. They could do it off a ladder. They would do it through tables. They would do it through burning tables. My favorite part about the Dudley Death Drop was that how the crowd senses it without it, any warning to it. They could just suddenly move into a quick change of position, and the crowd's going 3D, 3D, 3D. It's a weird kind of ESP that the crowd has for the move. And when they would hit it, the match was over. They would get kicked out of all kinds of things. The Bubba Driver, the Bubba Bomb, the What's Up headbutt. But that was done, and Devon was giving you the sign of the cross, and it was over.
Oh, yeah. I had on my list as well. And I love moves that really require timing, especially when it's a tag team finisher. And yeah, like you hit it right on nail on the head, John. Like when you would see kind of like Bubba start to like kind of like I guess like walk a little bit, and you saw Devon kind of plant himself a little bit to lift the guy up. and then Bubba would just jump in the air and hit the move. I mean, it took the Diamond Cutter or the RKO and just made it more devastating. I mean, yes, the fact that, Randy could hit the RKO out of nowhere, but these guys, I mean, the height sometimes they would hit on this. And again, either through a table or off a ladder, it didn't matter. And yeah, there was like some kind of ESP going on where you it wasn't like loud either. It was like you would start some people in the crowd would start to pick up like 3D, 3D, kind of thing. It's really, it was like it would start as a murmur. And then it would kind of like people would like quickly like catch on, like, oh wait, yeah, it's 3D. Well, and by the time they hit it, the crowd was like, off their chairs. Chad, any thoughts on the 3D?
Yeah, it's I think it's the quintessential double team finisher. So, great pick. Yeah, I didn't really think about that. I thought that one thing that was a challenge for me was tag teams and kind of fitting them in with both our lists. But yeah, 3D was definitely a good shout out. So I'm glad it got brought up.
Ben, any thoughts on the 3D?
I had a choice of 2 tag team moves. This was one of them, and I went with the other one for my pick. But yeah, like you say, it's just a tremendous move. The timing's brilliant, and when the crowd shout 3D, it's that deep bass voice, isn't it? And then they hit it, and like you say, you just know it's game over at that point.
Mm-hmm. All right. Very good. So I'm going to give the second actually, because I had the death drop. I'm going to go follow up on one of John's setup moves from earlier in the show. Rob Van Dam's 5-star frog splash. A lot of people hit the frog splash. I mean, Eddie's was great, but Van Dam, I mean, the guy would go down and he would like a dog, like his ears would perk up, like what? And then he would jump up, get up on that top rope, kind of crouch, kind of look around to the crowd, and then literally jump out of his boots so high and hit that force on the guy. I mean, like I said, him and Eddie's were probably the 2 best I think I've ever seen. And I think Montel Ford actually has a really good one these days. But his and it didn't matter where the guy was. Literally, the guy could be across the ring. He flew across the ring. The guy could be turned counterclockwise at an obtuse angle. Rob contorted his body midair to hit that splash. So yeah, that's what I really loved about that. Chad, what did you think of the 5-star frog splash?
Yeah, I went with Eddie in my honorable mention. I think I'm actually going to shout out another one. Mitsuharu Misawa has a good frog splash too. But yeah, I think those 3 and with Eddie and RVD, they used it as their finisher. Misawa did not. It was a transition move a lot of times. And I think it's just kind of your preference on those. But I mean, for RVD, it certainly displayed his athleticism with the height that he was able to get on a lot of his frog splashes.
All right. Ben, thoughts on the 5-star frog splash?
Yeah, great move. My favorite part of it was the bit after where RVD hits it and then he sells it. He sells the force like it's death before he covers the guy. And wrestlers just didn't do that. And yeah, it's just great because it like you say, it's a perfect, like he can hit it from anywhere in the ring. A guy can be 3 quarters across from the ring. That doesn't matter to him. He can clear that no problem. And yeah, it's my favorite version of the frog splash.
Mm-hmm. Yep. John, you had as an honorable mention.
I did, yeah. And to echo what we just heard about, the idea of him selling the move itself, that kind of helped you with how devastating it was. That he's willing to do this move that's going to hurt him because he knows it's going to end the match. RVD's performance of the move was so different from other frog splashes. One, he would jump up so high first. Like his was not just a forward jump with the frog splash, but he would propel himself up in the air. And then, like we've said, he could twist and turn so that he could get to it. It didn't matter where the guy was. He was going to land on it and he was going to hurt himself, but it was going to end the match.
Mm-hmm. All right. Chad, give us another entry on your list.
So I did go with the Diamond Cutter. I think that, I don't know, maybe if you're more, I guess, WWF, WWE centric. You think of like the RKO out of nowhere, but that was kind of the Diamond Cutter's MO for a while too, that Dallas was able to utilize the finisher from a ton of different positions. And what I like about the finisher overall, especially associated with Dallas Page, is kind of its prominence as a finisher coincided to Page rising up the ranks, where that's something me and Justin have been able to track in Wrestling Warzone, where in early 96 he's starting to use the Diamond Cutter more and more and starting to get kind of a murmur from the crowd similar to the 3D, where it's starting to grow a little bit, and as a result, like, Page is starting to kind of rise up the ranks slowly but surely within WCW, and it was a move that was kind of synonymous with him as he became one of their biggest stars.
All right. Ben, you had as well.
Yeah. Like Chad says, depending on what your particular preference is, it's either the Diamond Cutter or the RKO. I'm a Diamond Cutter guy. You know, before it became a meme, before it became a Michael Cole cliche, the cutter itself is just a killer move. Probably my favorite one he did was when he was dressed up in the Le Parker outfit and hit Savage with it. And like Chad says, this guy, you can follow his rise through the company basically through the use of the Diamond Cutter and when he started using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love it when he would take a guy off the top turnbuckle and do it. Like, the guy would, the guy would be up there trying to hit something, and then he'd get the guy, crotch him, and then he would just grab him, and literally, like, it wasn't out of nowhere. It was like you knew this was getting hit, and it was going to hurt, and the match was over. So, yeah, I love Dallas. I mean, and Randy's is the same move, but he does his own thing with it. So, yeah. I mean, I think you can like them both. I mean, obviously it's personal preference, but Dallas is just he's the originator of it. So, you got to give him props. John, any thoughts on that?
And what other finisher could also be a signature move in a yoga workout like it is for the Diamond Cutter in DDP yoga? But, for that top rope version that you mentioned, Andy, I always loved how he would grab the guy's head and he would almost kind of get a running start then and just kick his legs out and jump in the air and land down. A great move and obviously iconic move. It's been, used by other people. It's been, co-opted like by Orton, or, some would say the Stunner is similar, but impactful, quick hit, easy strike, and, something that's going to end the match. Yeah.
All right. Very good. Ben, give us another one of your selections.
Okay. I'm going to go, like I say, I had two tag team moves of my own, so I went with the other one, which is the Legion of Doom or the Road Warriors Doomsday device. So it's a great power move, but these are two powerful guys. They can pretty much get anybody up in the air. And again, we talk about force a lot tonight, but the force Hawk hits that clothesline with, and depending on the guy, the guy either pretty much drops to the ground or they try and do a 360 sell whilst they're going to the floor. And that move looks like it hurt because it really bloody did. And again, it's a move, and it's a move with time in, and like I say, it's just great because again, it's another move where it's the end. There's no coming back from that.
Oh yeah, especially when Animal would kind of flip the guy, right, and it'd time it right when Hawk hits the clothesline, and Animal throws the guy's legs. That he would get that flip over. So yeah, it was just devastating. Watching them do it, get the thumbs up, and then Hawk would just go up there. Yeah, it was great. John, thoughts on the Doomsday device?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more fun than watching those AWA tag teams just beating up jobbers, and just putting them through ridiculously extreme versions of their finishers. And LOD loved doing that. But it's another thing of seeing two gigantic men doing, a fairly athletic move with Hawk doing a flying clothesline, and then Animal just giving him a toss off, giving the opponent a little bit of help getting down when he goes through. It's great. It definitely was another impactful move and synonymous with that team. I'm glad that it's not one that's been co-opted by a lot of others. it really just stuck with LOD, and that's a great thing about a signature move.
And plus, we talked about WrestleFest earlier,
Yeah.
and the LOD were the bosses, basically, that you had to get up to in the tag team part of the game, and they hit they would hit the Doomsday device in the
They
game.
could hit it at any time, too, and it would drain your power immediately. It was terrible.
Yes. Chad, thoughts on the Doomsday device?
Yeah, I think the Doomsday device is a cool move in that it won titles, but some of the more memorable versions is against just like the no-name jobbers where they absolutely decapitated the poor guys. But probably not the best move to take if you're the opponent, but certainly lived up to its name, and it always looked impressive.
All right, John, give us another one of your entries.
Sure. So you have the stunners, you have the diamond cutters, and a lot of those moves that interact. My favorite version of it comes from Japan, and it's Masato Tanaka's Diamond Dust, which when he would hit it was so stiff. In versions you've seen of it, just looked like there's no way that guy didn't break his neck or bust his jaw open when he would hit it. If you don't remember it, he has his opponent in the corner, back to the turnbuckle. Tanaka does a somersault flip and lands in a stunner position, like lands on his ass, bringing the guy's jaw down into his shoulder. Looks like a knockout move immediately. Huge force, and makes me hurt just watching it.
All right, Chad, thoughts on the Diamond Dust?
Let the record state I was not the first person to bring up Japan on this podcast. So thank you.
I know. I had that thought. That did cross my mind. I was like, "Ooh, Chad's gonna pop for somebody else."
Yeah, I definitely marked out for that. No, that's a great pick, John. And it's one that he really brought to a ton of different promotions, and it was successful, whether it was FMW or 0-1 or in ECW as well. And it's a cool little wrinkle variation on those types of moves that were becoming more commonplace in the era that Tanaka was wrestling. So he kind of made it its own by utilizing the ropes and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly am not really familiar with it, but I can see it as the way you guys describe it. Ben, are you familiar with Diamond Dust?
One of the few Japanese moves I am familiar with, Andy. Yeah, it's vicious hold, and I'm very pleased that John picked it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm actually going to skip my turn because I have what a couple other people have, so I'll let them say it. So Chad, we'll go back to you. Give us another one of your entries.
Okay, I mean, I definitely wanted to have one high flying move on my list, and I kind of went back and forth. I think there's been some great 450s, some great shooting star presses, moonsaults, and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I went with the classic, and I went with Randy Savage's elbow drop. Just iconic. It's another one where you close your eyes and you can see him like hitting it at WrestleMania 3 with all the flash bulbs going off. It's just one of those moves where you got just insane air on it. It looked graceful, but also looked pretty devastating as he usually drilled the elbow down on his opponent. So it carried that dual purpose, and I just wanted it on my list as my kind of high flying move representative.
Yes, I had as well. Randy would go up there, the arms would go up in the air, to everybody, and it looked so simple. He would just jump off, drop an elbow. It looked like an easy move, but it's the precision, holding the position that he had, and it looked, like you said, Chad, devastating when he hit that elbow. It was just like, and Savage was not one of the bigger guys. I mean, he wasn't, but he had the agility. He hung with the big guys. That was the thing about Savage. He wasn't big, but he felt big. And he had an advantage over like a lot of his contemporaries because he went off the top rope and they didn't. And he would hit that move and it was done. I mean, you could say it became a tag team move when I believe like he would hit that and Hogan hit the leg drop when they were the Mega Powers. But nothing. Savage's elbow drop's probably one of the greatest off the top rope moves. Ben, you had as an honorable mention.
Pure perpetual motion, Andy, a thing of grace and beauty.
Mm-hmm. John, thoughts?
one of the first high-flying moves I remember seeing. Absolutely graceful. That hop up to the top rope, the arms up, and then just soaring across. Kudos to those late in his career when he couldn't take land on his knees and would take the full force of that for sticking it out. I hope they got a little extra money for their paydays that night. But yeah, iconic, the Macho Man elbow.
All right. Ben, let's finish off your list.
It's a move that's been mentioned a couple of times tonight already, but I've got to put it in because it coincided with when I really started becoming the, and I knew I was going to be a fan for life, and that is the Stone Cold Stunner by Steve Austin. Just an iconic move of that late 90s, early 90s period. The run when he hits the authority figures before he hits Vince. Vince takes the move like shit, don't get me wrong, but that image is just one that's seared into my brain. And like I say, the move's a basic move. It's just a kick and then he drops the guy down. But it's the speed, it's the quickness he hits it with. And then depending on who the guy is, depending on how good he sells it, we talk about Vince is his shit, but I love the Rock's flip he does when he sells it. But yeah, just a brilliant iconic move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had as well on my list. Yeah, that was probably my no-brainer. When I was like, I got to put the Stone Cold Stunner because just so many images. I mean, it was the move of the Attitude Era. Him hitting them on McMahon, that was the signature feud. That was the feud that helped win the war. It was just the whether it's him clenching a beer with somebody and then he hits it, or like Ben said, the Rock, just would flip it out. Great. And I got to tell you though, I don't think we mentioned earlier, but when he was stunning Steve, I loved the stun gun. I mean, I love those moves where you take a guy up and it's one fluid motion and you turn around and drop the guy on the top rope. So yeah, I love anything Austin really did as a finisher. Chad, you had it as an honorable mention though.
Yeah, I think it's cool with these moves for these real pillars of wrestling to think about. Did the rise come before the finisher was there? And with Austin, I mean, he was doing the stunner sort of similar to DDP, and it's kind of interesting in that it's the same move to a degree, a little bit of a different, but same kind of concept as the Diamond Cutter. But, he's doing it in 96 and sometimes using it as a transition and whatnot. But it gained prominence, and it's also a move that I think has the widest spectrum of sales from the opponents, where you get the theatrical Rock version, you get the crappy Vince version, you also get some good sales jobs from other wrestlers, but very simple but highly effective. And like you said, Andy, it's very iconic. I mean, the imagery that you have in your mind from different stunners is just some of the more iconic images you have in wrestling history.
Yeah, I think I've seen on YouTube, you just go and it's the Stone Cold Stunners for 5 minutes or whatever it is, and it's just fun, mindless wrestling. Just boom, boom, boom. Yes, yeah. John, any thoughts on the Stone Cold Stunner?
I mean, speaking of YouTube, when you have a move that's been imitated millions of times over by people on YouTube videos, it's definitely a Mount Rushmore move. So yeah, the stunner stands out. I would when he would. I know he was probably even doing it tongue in cheek when he would almost spam the move and just come in and clean house and hit 10 stunners in a row, just dropping people on their heads. But Austin, kick, wham, stunner. That's all you need.
All right. John, you're up. Give us another one of your entries.
Sure. So we have 2 more left, right? I'm not miscounting that, correct?
Well, it different degrees. You have 2 more. I'm
okay,
done. Good. Ben's done, so there's crossovers, so that happens.
All right, no problem. So, Chad, I know you were happy that we were in Japan before. We'll actually go back there again for my next one, which is single star. And I learned this move from a video game. So, once again, let's go back to I think I had to purchase this move in the SmackDown Mall. And it just looked ridiculous in the video game. I thought there's no way that's real. Then I watched Kobashi do it in real life and saw that this was actually done, and that's the Burning Hammer. Basically the AA, but he holds on to him and he's got him on his back. The guy facing face out as opposed to back out instead. Absolutely brutal looking when he hits it. Looks like he breaks everybody's neck going through it. It's been sanitized in the Performance Center. They show people doing it now. I think Tyler X did it, and they've basically modified it to be like the AA, and whereas they flip them over and let them go. But that Kobashi Burning Hammer is something to behold, and I'm surprised that we're not more people hurt by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think you've gotten very high marks in Chad's book, because Chad had as well. So Chad.
Yeah, so the Burning Hammer, and I'm glad John clarified the Kenta Kobashi version for sure. One is the most brutal looking one, where he absolutely killed the opponents when he delivered it. But the reason I love the Burning Hammer is Kobashi only performed the move, I think, 8 times, and it has 100% success rate. So it was never kicked out of, always finished the match. It was a true finisher, and it was a true kind of last bullet left in the holster gun move that Kobashi could pull out later in his career to ensure victory. And to me, the most iconic usage of it is in his March 1st, 2003 match versus Misawa. That's kind of the torch passing match where Kobashi wins the GHC title in Noah and goes on a real almost 2-year reign with that belt. He'd beaten Misawa before, but that's certainly a series that was dominated by Misawa. And in previous matches, leading up to the match, he'd hit Misawa actually with the Burning Hammer in a tag match in 1998 and got the pin that way. But he wasn't able to hit it in the singles match, so he'd never been able to hit that move in a singles match until the March 1st, 2003 match, where he hits it, pins Misawa, and the rest, as they say, is history. So just to me, like when I think what's a finisher of all finishers, I think of the Burning Hammer.
Wow, that's amazing that he used the move 8 times. That's it, just 8 times. That is one of the most amazing wrestling stats I've ever heard. Ben,
sorry, Andy. Chad,
go ahead, John.
These people calling their moves a Burning Hammer are just these days are just frauds.
Yes, it can be very frustrating. So I think with the Burning Hammer, and it's some of it I definitely think is flattery, because you do see it a lot on indies, and of course it's people that idolize Kobashi, and I do think it's a very extreme move to take. So it is one of those where it's like, well, I don't necessarily need Joe Schmo indie star to be delivering the Burning Hammer with the authority Kobashi did, but it is kind of one of those moves where I think it in some ways it does get like desensitized, because I think most of us have seen it, but it is kind of interesting to look at like the originator of the move with Kobashi, like how sparingly he used it. So it's kind of one of those things where if I want to be a little elitist, I'm like, yeah, just keep the Burning Hammer sacred and, just let it be Kobashi's thing.
Right. Ben, are you familiar with the Burning Hammer?
I am familiar with the Burning Hammer, and like Chad says, that's the great thing about it. It's a truly special, unique move, and it's got 100% hit rate, which that is when he hits it, that's it. It's game over, and yeah, it's fantastic.
All right, John, you actually are the only one that still has an entry left, so why don't you give it to us?
Great. All right, so I'm going back to tag teams for my last entry, and just like the Burning Hammer, I think this may have a 100% hit rate, but that's because I don't remember it even ever being used in any of their other matches, and these guys didn't win that often, but it's such a great move. It's so unique, and it looks so devastating when they hit it, and that's the Beverly Brothers Shaker Heights Spike. definitely a bit more off the radar. But if you remember this, Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom get together, tossing jobbers around with the Genius on the outside, and one of them would lift the jobber up in a backdrop while he's up in the air. The other would just grab him by the head and spike his head down into the mat. There's plenty of video, I think, on YouTube of them, really looks like almost botching this, but it's not. That's just how the move is designed. Another one of those moves that if I took it, I would think, yep, I'm not getting up from that, or I wouldn't bother to get up from that because what else is going to happen? Great move. Probably won maybe 5 matches, but good for them. I think it's 100% hit rate. Let's go.
All right. Chad, thoughts on that?
Oh, what a brilliant obscure choice there. When he was describing that, I thought he was going with Power and Glory, but no, went the Beverly Brothers route. Yeah, certainly not one that came to mind, but if you're watching some of the superstars from late 92, 93 era, it was certainly a devastating move. I would actually like to go back and see if they ever hit that in a competitive match. That'd be something kind of cool to track to see if it ever was unsuccessful or not. But yeah, nice obscure choice there, John.
Yeah, Ben?
Great minds think alike, Chad, because I too thought you was talking about the Powerplex. But yeah, great left field pick. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So let's get to honorable mentions. Chad, you want to run through yours?
Oh God. so I have a few. I'll try to cut them down.
It's all right. We got time.
I really, in retrospect, I might, because we had 2 lists. I might have just put the spear for Goldberg and left off the jackhammer and put this on my Mount Rushmore. But the lariat by Stan Hansen, again, like insanely simple, but nobody's ever hit a clothesline that looked that devastating. You can say half of it is Stan was nearly blind, so he was, just swinging as hard as he could and hoping to hit something. So there was that, but just a great finisher there. Kind of along the lines of the Burning Hammer, I wanted to mention the Tiger Driver 91 for Mitsuharu Misawa. Now, one of the things with the finishers is some of the guys, the All Japan, some of my favorite wrestlers, they have such a bevy of kind of finishers. So Misawa, in his run at the top, he used a front face lock submission at times. He used the Tiger suplex. He used the Emerald Frozen. He used running elbow. But the Tiger Driver 91 was a move that came out in 1991. He used it a couple times, once against Akira Taue. And it basically, it's a Tiger Driver, which the Tiger Driver, one thing I like in the All Japan Japanese wrestling is you get the hierarchy that gets displayed. So the Tiger Driver would be like a mid-level defense. Misawa would win with just the Tiger Driver. But he created the Tiger Driver 91, which is basically a Tiger Driver, but he dumps you right on top of your head. So again, not very safe, but looks devastating. Did it a couple times in 1991, set on the shelf, and then I would say the most iconic usage of this move is in the June 3rd, 1994 iconic match versus Toshiaki Kawada, where, again, he busted out. First time in 3 years he's used the move after Kawada had kicked out of all those other finishers that had finished so many opponents. Again, Misawa kind of had one more bullet in his gun, and it was the Tiger Driver 91 who was able to pick up the victory. So wanted to give that one a shout out. A tag team double team move that wasn't mentioned, but kind of was a great influencer in my indie days, and my indie watching in the early 2000s was the Spanish Fly by the SAT, the Spanish announce team. It just looked cool. There's not much more to that. And then I'm guessing this will be mentioned by some of the others as an honorable mention, but I'll just give a quick shout out. And I think if you're listening along, you're kind of wondering when these 2 finishers were going to be mentioned. So the Sweet Chin Music by Shawn Michaels and the Tombstone by The Undertaker.
All right. Very good. Ben, honorable mentions.
Yeah, I had those two as well, Chad. The only other one we haven't talked about tonight, and I've got to mention it because I think my highway to the Impact Zone boys would kill me if I didn't, and I need to give it the reverence it deserves, is Monty Brown's Pounce.
Yes.
The most vicious move in all of TNA, and it's tremendous. We have a pounceometer on the show for a reason.
All right. John, honorable mentions.
Great. So we mentioned I had five-star frog splash on there. When we first started the chat about this topic, my first call in the chat was, we got to give due to my first favorite wrestler growing up, and that's Bad News Brown's Ghetto Blaster. Just a kick to the back of the head, and that it was devastating looking. He was such a cool guy. It sounded like when he would hit the Ghetto Blaster, it was awesome. I tried to recreate it in Creator Wrestlers for so long. You just can't find it. I think the closest it ever came was, if you play pro wrestling for the NES, Fighter Hayabusa did what was called the back brain kick, and it looked the most close to the Ghetto Blaster. So thank you, Bad News. And then sticking with video games, I'll go one of the finishers I gave myself along with the Burning Hammer as a Creator Wrestler in No Mercy was S.A. Rios' Moonsault Splash. A lot of people hit Moonsault Splashes, but S.A. Rios just hit it differently. It was much slower, even floating through the air. Really, really picturesque, I think, when you would watch it. And it not kind of jerky or snapped off like the other moonsaults. It was very graceful. So those were my honorable mentions. I'd like to say kudos to all of us for not going the indie route and somehow picking roll of the dice for everybody. So good job there.
Well, speaking of video game, I loved. I think it was he in Revenge, or was La Parka using La Parka's finisher? I loved using that.
La Parka's in Revenge, yeah.
Yeah, because that was also the one where if you hit A and B, I think you could hit the guy's finisher on himself.
Right.
Was that the one? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I love doing that in there. Of course, I had the rock bottom. Couldn't have the people's elbow and not have the rock bottom. Sometimes just the way he would hit it was just awesome. I mean, he would sell it. It's really just Jesus Christ. Now I'm losing my train of thoughts late. 2 pods. I had sweet chin music like everybody else. Loved it. Sometimes it would hit out of nowhere. The one he hit on Ric Flair, I love you. I'm sorry. We also had Arn Spinebuster, Jake's DDT, Flair's Figure 4. Have to do a shout out there. I was contractually obligated to mention the pedigree by the boss of the feed, so there you go. And then I also had the Powerplex. So that was my honorable mentions. So, guys, great show. We really ran the gamut here with setup moves and finishers, and everybody had tremendous list and representation all around in terms of feds, time periods. Great job, everybody. So before we go, though, let's kind of tell everybody where they could find you on social media, any kind of pods, anything that anybody wants to check out more of your work. Chad, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Andy. Had a great time doing the show. Main thing is the North-South Connection podcast feed. I co-host the Wrestling Warzone podcast with Justin Rosero. On that feed, it drops every other Thursday. We're in a very fun time period right now where we've just discussed Hog Wild 1996 and also on the precipice of SummerSlam 1996. So NWO's in full swing. So WCW is really rocking and rolling right now and has been for the last couple months. And we're starting to maybe see some things come together on the WWF side. So very exciting time frame for the Wrestling Warzone.
Yes. I have to get caught up on the back catalog because this is a time in wrestling like another, because it was just like what was going to happen over there, on TNT, and what was going on USA. I mean, you guys just covered the infamous, I believe, the Dart incident with where they threw Rey Mysterio into the trailer. Correct?
Yeah, that's the July 29th, 1996 Nitro. One of the greatest wrestling angles in wrestling history, I think. Just unprecedented kind of concept, and one that really worked and had so many intricate details. Some stuff I didn't even think about, like that was mentioned to me on Twitter after the show, like Sting with the baseball bat as he gets into the ambulance. It's just, there's so many great Easter eggs with that angle.
All right, very good. So check that out over on the North-South Connection. Ben, what do you have to plug for their people to find you?
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at BenL1981. Here on the wrestling feed on Place to Be Nation, I'm on Special Relations once a month, as well as Wrestling's Chicken Salad and Highway to the Impact Zone. On the Pop Experience, I do Popcorn Chicken Salad with Logan and Sean, as well as Telly and Tea with Miranda.
All right, very good. John, you have anything, social media presence, anything you want to direct people to?
Oh, man, not so much on the social media, but I'm involved with the two feeds you guys have going on Facebook, usually in the conversation, so on the North-South Connection or the Place to Be. Check it out if you want to hear some inane comments from me about that. I mean, and I'm hoping to stay involved with you guys on the podcast front, you know, whenever you need guests and people listening. If you want to hear from a guy who has the range to go from Kabashi to the Beverly Brothers in one podcast, hey, you know, make your voices heard, and I'll be happy to join you.
Yes, very good. Yeah, and like I said, if Trivia Night comes back for season 2, you're always welcome. That won't be till January at the earliest, so it's a fun show to produce, but it's a lot of work. So Jordan, myself, and Mr. Cook, we're going to take a little break, and hopefully we'll be back. But as for myself, here on the Wrestling Network, I also have a couple of other shows. I have Evolution, which is a deep dive into the career of a legendary wrestler. That drops quarterly. I have the Great Debate Wrestling as well. That is a sister show to the original Great Debate over on the Pop Experience. And yeah, so also on the Pop Experience, which is my home, which is where I primarily live, I got great shows out there. We have the Pop version of this show, Making Mount Rushmore. We have You're in Pop, which drops about every 6 weeks. Laugh in Theater, which is monthly. That is my weekly, where I do a live watch of a great comedy movie, as well as the Most Sensational, Inspirational, Celebrational, Motivational podcast drops monthly. That's myself and Miranda, breaking down and reviewing episodes of the Muppet Show. And then we will every 6 or 7 episodes, we will do a live watch of a Muppet film once we finish these seasons. A lot of fun. And Miranda and Steve and I, we do the Pop Goes the Classics Disney series. That drops monthly as well. Yeah, all kinds of great stuff. Also, don't forget all the great stuff on the North-South Connection, from wrestling to pop culture. Lots of great shows. Also on the Jenny position, that is Jennifer Smith's podcast feed, with shows like The Journey Through Infinity. You heard about Pluto? Brother Sister Rewatch, Bianca's First Time. Yeah, Jenny's got a lot of great stuff over there talking pop as well. John mentioned the Place to Be Facebook group, so join up. Lots of great conversation. We do lots of silly things in there, lots of wrestling discussion. Tournaments will be coming back soon. It's just a fun, great community to be involved in. But it's that's what we're all about here: fun, family, and good times. So I want to say a big thank you to John Kaslika, Ben Luck, and Chad Campbell for joining me here on this episode of Making Mount Rushmore Wrestling Edition. I'm Andy Atherton. Thank you, and we'll check you out next month. Take care, everybody.